You're listening to the Crucial 4 podcast series, where your journey is our passion. Now introducing the Crucial 4 founder and CEO, Charles Barber.
There we go.
Here we are. Hey, Charles.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your patience this morning or mid-afternoon.
Yeah, I get it. I got 2 kids sleeping, so I'm good for a little bit. Fingers crossed.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I do too. So I'm watching both my kids today as well. And like, we just had some groceries show up and I'm like, hey, can you go get the groceries? He's like, oh, all like mad about it. I'm like, bro, I need some help right quick. I gotta like get on the line. I gotta work. Like, you can't put up some groceries. Like let's see, you went to Mexico for 2 weeks. Oh, you're on the boat like every freaking weekend. You've been like, you can't go put up some groceries for 5 minutes. Like,
life is so hard.
Well, that's awesome. How old are yours?
Mine are 3.5 and 16 months. So not quite there yet, but it's like, they have that radar. Like when you have something going on, they just know. So my son went down with my husband, but for the first 10 minutes, he only wanted me, of course, because he knows that I'm busy. So, you know, have that alertness.
Yeah, that's exactly how they are. It's like, you know, dad's willing to take them, and then they're like, no, I want mom or whatever. Yeah. But anyways, that's that. That's just cool that you have kids. I can't wait for them to get older for you, and you can start bossing them around like me to help you do stuff around the house. Yeah, like we have like a little chore list thing, and it's funny because like he'll come back from school, and he goes to a private school, so like I see the type of people that kind of get dropped off, see the type of kids are there, and he talks about his chore list and how he gets paid to buy stuff that he wants, you know, because I told him, I was like, hey, if you want stuff, you can have whatever you want. I want you to be able to buy whatever, not whatever you want, but you know what I mean? He's an 8-year-old. But start to teach him like, hey, if you work for something, I'll pay you, you can buy it. Then when you get it in, you'll realize you probably shouldn't have bought it and it's a piece of crap, and start to understand this void of materialism and how like when you buy things and you get them, it really doesn't matter. I figure if I can start to ingrain that now with his own money that he works for, be feeding the chickens or taking out the trash or putting up the groceries, like he knows I'm gonna like hook him up, you know, or whatever. Then I feel like that will help detach him from wanting crap all the time. You know what I mean? Like use it as like a, what do they call that in psychology, where it's like a, whatever.
We have like a very similar model, but for like 3.5-year-old brain, we do tickets. I ordered just like a huge thing of tickets, and he can, if he, you know, listens exceptionally well when we need him to do something, or he helps us perform a task. He's at that age where it's like, carry this inside. And he's like, I'm tired. And I'm like, I don't care if you're tired, get inside. But he can earn tickets, and then we count his tickets. And if he wants to go pick out a toy in the toy aisle, he has to have enough tickets for it. But also trying for him to figure out like, hey, if that's 32 tickets and you've spent all of these months earning 32 tickets and you go buy a tractor that's going to break in a day, that was your choice to spend all of your tickets there. And also trying to help his little mind understand that. But even if it's something as simple as like folding washcloths and he balls them up, but he's putting forth the effort, we're like, okay, great, you earned a ticket.
That's a ticket right there. Yeah.
It's our big in our house right now.
That's so cool. Yes. That's so good to hear that you guys do that. You know, I think more people need to do that, you know, and
we had him last week. So we both own a gym and we work out daily, and you would think that they would immediately gravitate to that, but he sees it all the time and he's not gung-ho. I mean, he's 3.5. He's not like, let's go work out, but recently working out with us. So we're like, okay, if you start a workout and you get all the way to the finish and you finish your workout, you get a ticket. And yesterday was the first day we were sitting down and he's like, can we go to the garage and work out? And
wow.
Like, heck yeah, we can. So yeah, his little brain turning and start to understand, you know, value in things and working for them.
Yeah, I mean, and we have to just walk the walk. We can't talk the talk, you know. It's all about action. Like, what are they seeing us do? Not so much what are they hearing us say. And I know that they listen to what we say, but I feel like what we do impresses more upon them. You know, it's a deeper effect that goes deeper within them, and then just us, you know, philosophizing all day about stuff that it's like their attention span's like 20 minutes. You know, they need to see us when we're not engaged directly with them and see us in that. And then it's like, oh, and that's what I feel like they mimic more. I feel like they mimic more of that type of realization of their parents or their parents' actions or habits than us trying to like, we consciously want our kids to be this way or that way, so we consciously do these things, but really it's when we're in our unconscious and we're just flowing through the day that they're absorbing more of that, right? And it's so powerful, because sometimes I'm like thinking in my head, I'm like, do they just only do the stuff that I do that's bad? Like, what? Where's all the good stuff, And my kids do tons of good stuff, but sometimes, and I started realizing that, I was like, man, it's probably like when I'm doing things unconsciously that aren't the best ever, like certain things that I'll do, like with the junk drawer. Like if I put something in a junk drawer instead of like putting it in its right spot, and then I'm noticing like, hey man, what's up with this junk drawer? This thing is like exploding with crap, and it's because they're seeing me kind of be in the middle of a task, maybe get pulled to another task, trying to multitask, right? And you end up like kind of cut corners, and then so that task doesn't get done well. Or you put something somewhere and then they see you in like 2 days, where the heck did I put that tape? Or one of his chores is he has to cut the dog food, because it's like we get the dog food delivered, it's all like raw, whatever, and he has to cut it, and he's always asking where the scissors are, and I'm like, well, where'd you put them? And he's like, well, I put them over here, and I'm like, well, why aren't they there? And he's like, well, I don't know, I don't know where they're
Yeah, no, it's funny, and they'll call you out on it too when you mess up, of course.
Oh yeah, they're the best at that. Like,
we're at the stage where he's picking up our words, and I wouldn't say that we're big cursors. We don't use like a ton of curse words, but they come out when they come out. And now the one that's like, we don't say that, Mom, and I'm like, oh, you're right. Wild how they are a reflection, but yeah, it's they find us at our best, and they call us out at our worst, and how did you pick up on that? I'm impressed, and I'm also like, at this point in life, like, I have to really watch what I say and do, because he notices everything now.
Yeah. Wow. So I would love to introduce you to my crowd and my audience and all that good stuff. We've been following you guys for a while, and I've never really seen anyone do exactly what you guys do. So I thought that was very interesting. And then as I poked and went deeper, went on the site, I was like, oh, wow, like this is legit. Like you guys have your stuff together. You've really outlined things. You've made like a step process. You've got a couple options for people based on where they are in their pregnancy, if they're preconceiving, post, blah, blah, all that. And I was like, oh, this is legit. Because, most of the people that I've dealt with over the years, and most of the people that support Crucial 4 are women. And they're in their 35 to 45 years of age. And, I had my children way sooner than that age, but most women don't. I'm finding out, like most women are kind of like waiting, I feel like, till a little bit later these days. And so I think the service you're providing is like, I want my people to know about it, and I want them to like utilize it, because when I first got started and everything, it was like fitness and nutrition. Like I worked with Equinox, worked with tons of gyms like this, and worked with those Tier X trainers. And it was always like, if we could get people just to move properly, right?
Yeah.
And eat right. Holy cow. Like, I know that's not everything, but it's a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, thank you for saying that. And we're excited to be here. And, equally, we love you guys, and you see us as a company. We love what you do. Me personally, in our house, we use your product, becoming more and more familiar with more of the lines. So love that we're able to chat. But yeah, with BirthFit, we are that community for women, and we have been in this specific kind of birth realm, birth and fitness, for the better part of a decade. And really, before there was a lot of information out there. Now it's a little bit more, but you have to be so weary, because there's a difference in people or a program that rooted in constantly changing research and experience. And, we just really pride ourselves as industry leaders, because there's a difference in that versus someone who maybe is an influential, competitive exerciser or someone trainer. And they're like, well, I was pregnant and I had a baby, so here's a program that I followed and it worked for me. And it's like,
right.
But what do you know about the actual physiological process of pregnancy, birth,
Right.
and so we're constantly, trying to stay in the forefront and stay ahead of that so that we can capture everyone in what we like to call the motherhood transition, preconception, prenatal, birth, postpartum. And then we have a community of women that is beyond that immediate postpartum. And it's like, hey, we want a community that's not afraid to talk about nourishment and lifestyle and cycles and just being a woman and everything. Like, we change every single day and we live in a very masculine minded world. And so just bringing that awareness around how our lifestyles can be impacted when we start to respect that feminine energy and what we feel like is missing in a lot of the fitness and nutrition kind of aspects out there.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. Yeah. And I think the service you're providing there's a massive need for that. And, I picked up on some things as you were talking and just thinking about the women I've worked with in the past. I don't do consults anymore, but in the past, like women that were preconception, like what they're doing, post, during, post. And I've noticed that a lot of women have just different physiological issues, especially as they become pregnant and the hips start to change. Maybe they're not training right. Maybe they trained too hard in the past. I see a lot of that. They trained so hard in the past and then they get pregnant and they're like, go to this whole mind walk thing because they're used to like just pounding themselves 6 days a week in the gym, doing spin class and doing this and doing that. And it's like, I'm like, hey, you guys need to calm down. Like, what about our coffee? Can I not have my coffee? Like, I train at 5 a.m. and I'm like, I wouldn't drink coffee if I was you and pregnant, but if I say no, I feel like you're gonna cut my head off right now. You know what I mean? Like, what about coffee? What about this? It's like they're thinking, and I'm like, look, you're pregnant now. Like, things have to change. Your body's changing physically. And I'm like, what are they gonna listen to me about that for? You know what I mean? No one's gonna listen to me. They need someone like you tell them that. They need someone that has, like you said, focused on these areas, focused on what happens to the female body, and really apply the type of workout to that. Because a lot of the workouts that I see, it's just this ground, it's a pounding. You got this CrossFit crowd that just like destroys themselves. And, for me, I played every sport. I do jiu-jitsu. I'm super physically active. But what I've learned as I've aged is that less is more, especially as I age. And I get more gains doing more proper, like going and actually seeing someone who's like, hey, bro, your right hip is jacked and your left hamstring is larger than your right, and and I've got scoliosis. And so it's like, for years I was training the wrong way, right? And I feel like that correlates and coincides with exactly what you deal with at a fundamental level with these women. You're right. I mean, I'm kind of guessing, but I'm just assuming.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest struggles, because we do get a lot of athletes, and I say the word athlete as, everyone from Olympic and professional level athletes to just the gym athlete, the general everyday has a daytime job, but goes to the gym and is physically active. And we're very ego driven human beings, and we have an identity with that part of ourselves. I mean, just think about those of us who are still in the identity of like our peak level of fitness when we're 22 years old, or when you just entered the military, or you're a teenage track star, right? Like, we have this identity, and then 15, 20 years later, it doesn't match up. And you're like, well, who the hell am I if I'm not that person? So all new level when you're pregnant, because, it's twofold. It's like when we're stuck in that ego and that identity, it's almost like suffering. We say that in pregnancy, like nothing calls you into your feminine state more than pregnancy. And just to be clear, like we all have masculine and feminine, right? It's the yin and the yang.
Yeah.
And one is bad, one is good, but we just live in a very masculine world, and pregnancy really calls us into our feminine. And so what I mean by that, if you think of health, if you think of nutrition and fitness, it's very like absolutes. We're training at this percentage, this time, intensity, this many calories, macros, like it's just so structured, don't deviate from the plan. And the hard part is in pregnancy, like we shouldn't get to tell our body what it needs. We need to listen to what's changing and communicating. And the cool thing is, we know the physiological adaptations of pregnancy make you a superhuman. You have almost double the blood, double the amount of oxygen. It's not that you can't do these things anymore, but every day is going to feel totally different. Your first trimester is going to feel wildly different than your second. And just coming to terms with like your identity now. You are never your former athlete, your former self. Like you are birthing into this new human, this new realm of being a mother. And where some really struggle is letting go of that former identity so that they can really thrive in that pregnancy. And that's why our program, like we have a vast movement index. We do strength and conditioning, and we don't want you to give up the things that we love, but it comes with intention. And you know, having those more feminine minded conversations of how do I feel today? What's coming up for me today? If this isn't appropriate, what would feel better? How can I get creative? Like getting into that realm a little bit more, and then preparing us for birth too, because birth happens. It is the ultimate surrender. You don't get to control labor. The more you control it, the less you progress. So it's kind of tapping into that mindset and training in pregnancy to prepare yourself for that birth, that ultimate surrender. And then it's going to do wonders for your mindset and your mental state postpartum to have already kind of adapted that ever-changing person that you are.
Yeah. And if someone's listening right now and they're in that actual state, what would you say it doesn't have to be like the number one most common thing, because there's never the number one most common thing, but what is one of the most common things you see that women could do to help benefit? Like say she wakes up one morning and she's not feeling like she wants to train, but you know, maybe she needs to move a little bit. What do you see as being maybe a one or two things that women can do? I think about the hips and now the hip girdle and all that's changing and stuff like that, but what do you kind of see since you're in the trenches, right?
Yeah. So I say on the physical aspect, so say that you're, you know, first trimester, got nausea, just really tired. All of your energy is going to creating this human in this life inside of you, right? So it's like you're not thinking about your 60-minute cardio day. You're doing good to get off the couch, to get some calories in, and to move. And so one thing that I always tell people is don't ever underestimate the value of a walk, a good walk. And there's so many things that can be accomplished on a walk. We can be barefoot, grounding. You can do nasal breathing only, focusing on your senses, what's coming in, like just to make you more present, more grounded in your body. You know, I think there's a lot of truth to, I see this a lot where, you know, 3 30-minute walks a week is probably better for the general population than 3, you know, hour-long high-intensity training sessions, because our nervous system is just so wound up. So I think walking is great, gets the hips, gets the pelvis moving. The other half of that is, we call them our BirthFit basics, but we have 15 like basic just movement poses and positions that we work on. That's a lot of core, pelvic floor, diaphragm.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a lot of things that people are used to, like a dead bug, like a bird dog.
Yeah.
It's done with a specific intention. We're making sure pressurizing appropriately, strengthening the core, the pelvic floor appropriately, but also being able to get in these positions, because these positions mimic the tougher positions that you're probably going to want to do when you do feel better. So at a minute, I love to do some sort of BirthFit basics kind of routine, get the mind-body connection going. It's almost like a good way to have a conversation with your body, what's coming up. Feel. And a lot of times people get through that and they're like, I feel so much better. I want a little bit more. I'm ready to go work out. Like, cool, a walk is good for me today. So I think, you know, like you said, keeping it simple, less is more. You know, movement is life. Movement is everything. I want you to move. But I want it to be intentional and appropriate for the state that you're in.
And correct, because a lot of those exercises you initially mentioned, a lot of times people maybe do them once, maybe they had a trainer show them, but over like months that go by, I find myself doing this. That's kind of why I'm mentioning this. I find myself kind of shortcutting it or not doing it proper, not putting the intention in it. I was like, oh, it's a bird dog. I'm just going to hammer these out right quick, you know, and then I go and I look back and I'm like, man, I did those wrong, right? My positioning was off and I was just trying to pound through them, you know? And so there's so much to be said about those mini exercises and doing them properly, because they have they can have a monumental effect on you to where, like you said, you want more. You want to go to that next step. And that's really kind of what, as a trainer, you probably want. You know, you want your clients to want a little bit more. We want to be able to like say, okay, now you can do a little bit more, because you know what's going to happen for them in the long term of that. They're going to be ready faster once the baby's, you know, and they're maybe done breastfeeding, right? Their body's set up perfectly to just bam, just hit it. Not, maybe I shouldn't use that bam and all that intensity, but Crucial 4, like that's where they named the people that named the brand, they named it after me, obviously. So
well, it's interesting you say that though, because babies are the best movers, and they're like, we learn the most from babies. So when we're doing, like when I talk about the basics, we're doing just basic prehab, rehab style movements, it's like a dead bug, a bird dog, like right. That's literally how a baby comes out. Those are their first movements. When they have no core strength, they're building up their core strength. They're on their back and they start moving their limbs. Just
right.
Like, and they start rolling left and right.
Right, the rolls, yeah.
Side plank, and they're able to transition.
Right.
Bird dog, which leads into a crawl, which then they can get into a squat, a stand, and a walk. And it's like, nobody taught them how to do that. They didn't like app and say like, okay, what's my 30-day core program, right? It's like they come out of the womb, whether they're born in America or China or wherever they're born, and they have developmental movements just ingrained in them. And so it's like we were born knowing how to move well. And then we started at a desk, you know, sitting all day, terrible posture, maybe playing specific sports that
work one side of the body a lot. Right. Yeah.
And then you become an adult, and it's like, I mean, you've probably seen, like, have an adult crawl like a baby. It's so uncoordinated. It's hard for.
Oh, I was about to mention that. I went and got Rolfing done a few years ago, and that was part of the initial thing. Is I was like a child and I moved like a baby, and like one side did fine, but the other side it was like full on. This nothing was there, and I'm like, I can't even crawl and roll over on my side like a baby. And so what you're saying is resonating so heavy with me right now, because I'm like, man, she's spot on. Like, yeah, it's so important. And I'm sure the woman doing that probably, like you said, I know the children are naturally ingrained with it, but I have a feeling that they're going to be even more heavily influenced if the woman is doing that stuff before they come out, you know, just the energetic potential of that for the child.
I mean, we always say that your internal environment is baby's external environment. So we know through research that the baby is learning, like through stress response, through movement, like they are learning to navigate their own world. And so that movement piece is definitely ingrained in them. So I think, you know, it makes such a big difference. And it's just like, these are our basics. These are our foundations. And if you think about the parallels here, is when I mentioned, like, when you bring life into this world, you also rebirth yourself into a mother, right? You are this human. What better time than to start with, like, build a foundation? You are a new human. Start with no different than how you were brought into this world. So just as these babies learn and develop, you know, innately, you know, and teaches them, what better time than for us to get more into that primal innate movement to rebuild and reconnect with our bodies in a way that we were born and intended to. So it's really how it's full circle. Babies are our best teachers and they're our best movers. And there's no better time, like freshly postpartum, than to reinforce things.
Right. But to also understand that you're starting with a new body. You know, I think a lot of times, like my wife, super athletic and everything as well, she wanted to get right back into those workouts that she had done before. And I think that's where she might have, you know, maybe had some setbacks and a lot of plateaus, because she didn't start with brand new. She kind of continuum of a pause. Yeah. And it's like, no, you can't do that. Like you got a brand new physical now. You need to like literally start from the ground up. And wow.
I would say that, you know, America does no one any service in this realm. So we say this all the time, but there is no standard rehab protocol for birth, whether cesarean or vaginal. And if you think about it, there's no other major medical, surgery, anything. We relate this a lot to like ACL surgery. You have a 2-3 inch scar on your knee, and from like the second you're done with surgery for like the next 6 months, what your PT looks like, right?
Right.
Hey, at 6 weeks I get cleared and I can go start my 5K training, right?
Right.
Do that. But then it's like, have a baby, vaginal or cesarean, major abdominal surgery, and then go in at 6 weeks and get cleared for sex and exercise. And it's like, what does that mean? Does that mean I can go walk? Does that mean I'm ready for strength training? Like, there's no rehab protocol. And then, there's all of these other things where it's like they don't have it set up. So it's no one's fault other than the system is failing women.
Right.
That is why we exist with BirthFit. It's like we are rehab protocol. We have something that you can pretty much start doing 24 hours after birth, but it's lying in 30 days of just respecting this process, co-regulation, skin to skin. But it's okay to start breathing, get your diaphragm, like your organs are shrinking and shifting. Energy back in your body, but also embrace this time. And then we get into the basics, which is the rehab we talked about. And then we get into the more of that rebuilding, training, looking a little bit more like pre-pregnancy style work. But it's a process, and in our experience, again, both working with professional athletes and general public, those that took the 5-6 month period, just take it slow and move through this process, do the best long term. Those that skip that might get away with it, but then after a year they have some sort of injury or something that sets it back, and then they're back at the beginning again.
Right. And that's something that I think a lot of people deal with, even in not being pregnant, if they take breaks, right? I'm one of those guys as well in that, because like now I'm doing more of the ATG program, and I'm seeing more of a myofascial release, a person I see every single week, which is extremely expensive to do consistently, but I have to have it. And like I said, I'm less is more for me now. I'm going backwards to get to move forwards. And man, that's so funny, because it's like kind of the same thing. But one of the things I wanted to mention when you're talking about how there's nothing out there, I actually went and did an internship for PT. I wanted to be a physical therapist when I first went to college. And then when I did the internship, I was like, hell no, I do not want to do this for a living. Like, the type of people that came in, it was like, oh, I don't want to be like a nurse. I feel like it was like more of a nursing job than it was anything. But then just the data and the info, like, I wasn't convinced. Like, I had played sports my whole life. I'd worked with trainers, and I work with professional athletes now and trainers, and like the types of workouts they do, they're like on the forefront, just like you guys with BirthFit and what you're doing. And none of that stuff is in the industry, the brick and mortar. Like, none of it is. You're taught this like model that doesn't ever really change or get added to or edited. It's like, no, this is the model and it's perfect. Just it's like, yeah, and there's like no say so in changing things. And if you do get something changed, doesn't it take like 4 or 5 years or something for it to actually get implemented into the textbook? So by the time it gets in the textbooks and people start reading it, there's already new crap already came out, and like, no, well, we thought that was better, but no, this is better. So I think it's going to take people like you and companies like yours. You're essential for us as, a collective, because like you said, you have to take it into your own hands. That's why I started my company and why I do what I do, because I know, 90% of companies are just buying a product from some manufacturer, slapping their label on it and saying it's theirs. And they're all marketing companies is what they are. They're not legit. And so yeah, you got to do it. You got to grab the bull by the horns. You got to get some blood, sweat, and tears in there and just get her done. Right. I'm such a Texas thing here. Hold on one second. I'm going to turn this down.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it's just what it takes, and I mean, that ingenuity, that mentality, I feel like is what built this country anyways. You know what I mean? Like, we'd be failing our ancestors, our great grandparents, if we didn't work in some sort of fashion like them. I love watching Westerns, but it always just baffles me whenever I watch them, because I'm like, man, this is how it was not too long ago. Like, my great grandparents came over in a wagon, and like, I'm like,
it is, because in today's world, what's hard is like, when you think about that, I was just having this conversation. It's like, life was intended to be hard. Like it's tough, but think about 100 years ago, how much harder things were, how much more they endured, but that was just life. It was like, they persevered. This is all they knew. And now it's like, oh, I have to carry this bag inside. It's hard. And it's so crazy how it shifted. I'm like, things used to be really hard. And so it's wild. But yeah, like nothing in the medical industry changes quickly. And you know, you have to be your own advocate. Intuition is one thing, but you can only go through the system so long before you start to question it, and to just have some common sense to be like, is this working? Or, you know,
Right.
like, is this even for me? Are they, you know, making these procedures for the sick and the obese American, or for thriving like me? And if it's not for me, I have to go find it, or I have to go teach it. And that's kind of, you know, that's our mindset, is it's like, nobody's going to just teach these things in standard Western medicine kind of way. So like you said, you just have to do it. And
Yeah.
you are your own testimony and the people that you've worked with. But it works countless time and time again. So
Yeah.
you're onto something, you just got to push through it.
That's right. And God bless that we can do that, right? And what a blessing that we can be, you can be where you're at, I'm where I'm at. We can have these conversations. People can connect with us all over the world. I think that's like the coolest thing ever. And even though it's kind of a double-edged sword with technology, it's double-edged. So it does have an edge that is beneficial as long as we use it correctly.
Right.
And that's kind of the key, you know. As you were talking too about, you know, the stressors back then and stresses now, and how we're kind of soft, you know, I guess is kind of the word that I like to use a lot. I tell my son, you know, I just told him that as he's picking up the groceries. I'm like, bro, you're getting kind of soft, bro. I think we need to have a come to Jesus on the screen. Like, I know it's summertime and it's 101 out here, but it's just like 107 the other day, which is like crazy gnar. But I'm just like, bro. And I even see some of my buddies that, you know, like I got a buddy that, you know, he's pretty much got it made, right? Like he doesn't have to really work, and their situation I'm not going to divulge here on camera, but I see him, and I, you know, invited him to do some stuff like physical stuff, and this guy used to work physically really hard, but I'm like, bro, like you got soft, bro. Like you're soft, man. Like this is ridiculous. Like it's the same with like, cause like I love to farm, I love being outside, and like I like to go barefoot and stuff. And I like, you know, ants will bite me and stuff. And like in the beginning of the season, you're like, ow. Or if I take someone out there that's kind of tender-footed or whatever, they're like kind of like prancing around, just laughing. I'm like, man, you gotta come out here more often. You're getting too soft, you know. So
you say that because we're very much a barefoot family too, and my son like never ever wears shoes, and his feet are so tough. And like we think like, you know, we'll run a mile, we'll work out on the pavement barefoot, like our feet are, we've built up that tolerance. But he is like next level, and it's really funny because like we kind of have a creek in the back, but you know, we've been in a drought for however many months, so it's just like hard, like creek bed, and he just like goes down there, and it's amazing to see. And you know, people are always like, aren't you afraid he's barefoot? And I'm like, you know, if he gets bit by a snake, he gets bit by a snake, and we figure it out. I would rather him be barefoot. But we're always just amazed that like the heat doesn't affect him, all of those things. And so yeah, it's crazy how just it's so unaccepted in society, and people are just always so taken back when they see us. They're like, we never see you guys with shoes on. And I'm like, yeah, you should try it.
yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife's Laos, and she can actually take her feet and like go like this with them.
That's awesome.
And she's always had very good structure, and like my daughter's feet are like that, you know. And I was like putting my fingers through them, and I kind of just playing with her, and I was looking at mom's feet, and I was like just, you know, messing around. But if I showed you my feet, they look like this. And that's from soccer. Yeah. I was like big into soccer, and then just cleats, football, basketball, baseball, always wearing some cleats. Track, or my track spikes really had my feet really tight. And my pinky toe has literally went under this other toe. And my big toe has kind of like went, I mean, I'm not going to show my feet on camera. They're kind of gross because, like I said, I do walk around barefoot, so they are dirty. Yeah. So I'm not going to show them on camera, but just know they're deformed. And I'm working on undeforming them, and it's kind of painful. I mean, sometimes I bought one of those things you put in there to do your nails on your toes. You know, those spacer things. Oh, those hurt so bad. I like tried wearing those for like a week, and I was like, oh, it was rough. I need to do that more.
We call shoes sensory deprivation chambers, which is favorite thing, because it's just like you miss out on so much of the world. And I learned, again, like we were always kind of barefoot people, but watching my son was so like hyposensitive to like everything he checked out as a kid was with his feet. It's like, I don't know about this, and you see him and like that was where he like got his sense of comfort. Do I like this? Do I not like this? Like I need to put my foot on it. And I was like, that's so cool, because that is like our foundation. That is our grounding. Like,
and that's a saying, let me put my foot on it.
Yeah.
Literally, right?
You like put all this together and you're like, oh, shoes are ruining us. So I always tell people, I'm like, as cute as like little kid stuff is, like one of the best things you can do for your babies, especially when they're learning to walk and balance and get their coordination, like take their shoes off.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, I remember when we first put shoes on Asher, she couldn't even walk. Like she was like, what the hell is this? These are like stilts. She's all like, and you'd hear like, ka-kunk, 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 and she's just like, no. You know, she's a girly girl, so she definitely likes wearing, you know, her. I remember we got these like hot red pink boots, and boy, she wore those out. But yeah, she'd walk in them all funny because she just wasn't used to walking with shoes.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then like you said, just adding to what you're saying about when you see them and you're seeing them walk around, people kind of freak out. And I'm like, you know, as long as they're doing dangerous things and I'm watching them, like they're doing them more so carefully, then I feel like it's okay, because it's like, it's better than being like, no, 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 and then embedding that crap in their head, and then that stuff like sticks with them, especially if the parent is like what they call, is that called like helicopter parenting or something like that? Where they're like constantly like on their ass about stuff, and it's just like, dude, like maybe your first one, go have another one and see how much you want to actually do that. You know, you'll actually go insane trying to helicopter parent, you know, so it's, yeah, we just have to create that space for them, you know, to allow them to explore and do things in kind of a dangerous way, you know, and, you know, making sure they have stuff in the back to crawl on and jump on and all that, which I'm sure you guys do. But
yeah, we're huge fans of that. And, you know, having like a little garage gym and things like that, it's like, it's just fun to like not teach them, just to watch them and see where they explore and the things that they're doing. But you know, kids are active, and we're in the same boat. I would say, you know, this summer's been tough. There's probably been more screen time watching TV than we would like, because it's like 15 minutes outside to get 10, 15 minutes outside, go upstairs and play for 10, 15, and it's just this cycle.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're trying to be like super conscious and just getting them out when we can.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's hard, and I will say that they are much more pleasant to be around. We're much more pleasant when everybody gets their outside time and gets all that done.
Oh yeah, when we hit the bug, go to the lake, like those kids are passed out. Like before, I'll purposely go like a little bit afternoon, like 1 or 2, and stay out there till like 7:30, 8, and I'm pulling the boat on the trailer. They're out. Like that, and that's exactly what I want. You know, those are the days I remember as a kid, you know, being on the water, and it's just like, I just want them to have that, because it's like when you're near the water, regardless of how hot it is, it's manageable, it's doable, you know, and it's not that big a deal. But yeah, it's hard when it's every single day, right? It's like kids get summer, we don't. Yeah. We don't, I mean, we do, but you know, we don't get off. We're not off for 2.5 months, you know? And so it's like, yeah, we can, you know, take them out or take them to a pool or whatever, a few days out of the week. But for the most part, it's just like, yeah, man, it's a challenge. The summertime is really tough. That's part of why I was late. Like I told you, you know, I'm just like juggling it all.
Yeah, no, I feel that too. We're like praying down here for a tropical storm. We're like, bring on something. It's getting too crazy. So
yeah, it's
especially with like a farm and having to sustain all of that too. It's a lot. So
yeah. So if I didn't have drip tape, if If I didn't have mulch everywhere, no way. I go up to talk to some of my people I know that have backyard gardens. Everyone's like, it's all dead. They're all texting me, what do I do? And I'm like, well, do you mulch? Do you, do these things that I've talked about? And no one does. Like, I'm super heavy on my fertigation. Like, we make tea every single week, twice a week now in the summer. And we even do an electrolyte tea for the plants where I basically take sugar and salt and vinegar, and I just make a huge tea with that, with like microbes, EM microbes, and that goes out. And that's not even our main tea, our main biological tea that we send out. And, it's like the plants are just perspiring like crazy. They're not in a photosynthetic state. They're in a perspiration state. So they're not growing. They're just surviving. But, if you put some shade out there and you mulch that soil, like you get like a good 6 to 12 inches of mulch on your soil, and you've got drip tape underneath there, it stays cool. Plants actually do really well. Like, this is one of the best gardens we've had.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's just one of those things when you implement some of those systems. But if I go around my front yard, which I don't really take care of, which I'm looking at right now, man, there's cracks. We have cracks in the yard now. And it's gnarly. It's like my dad's like, your foundation of your house is gonna crack, and I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. So it's like I have to keep some stuff going. Yeah. Luckily, I have 10 300-gallon rain barrels. Unluckily, though, it hasn't rained in like a month, so they're empty.
Yeah, we're in that boat too. It's like, yeah, we don't have rain barrels yet, but we're talking about it, and I'm like, we haven't had any rain. That's not even convincing me right now, because we'd have nothing in storage. But we're
yeah. You gotta gobble it up when it hits, in the spring and in the fall, and then just hope it carries you through as long as it can. But that's the best you can do. And as long as I feel like you're supplementing some of that rainwater in, I think you're good. Because like our main water that we get, it's actually really, really good compared to most.
Yeah.
But it's high calcium. So it's like there's super calcareous, which is the main mineral the plants and humans need. But when there's too much of it, it causes issues. And that's kind of like the boat that I'm in. It's because as the summer goes, as it gets drier, the lakes get lower, the calcium level actually goes up higher in the water. And so it becomes more of a problem. And the only way to really get it out is through an exchange system. And that is just not cost prohibitive. I hear about people talking about filtering their water to go to their garden, and I'm just like, that's great for like a tiny ass garden, excuse my language, but that's great for that. That's not good for anything practical that's going to feed more than 1 or 2 families. It's cool for a greenhouse. And I do that for some of my stuff that I have. I have an RO system back there, but I don't use that all in the whole garden. I use that on a super small section of like, it's super exotic stuff. Like I finally got some astragalus going, and I had some seeds that I'd gotten from one of my trips, and I just could never get it to grow. And then I started building this Albrecht soil, which is like the perfect, sorry if I'm going off about farming stuff. It's kind of my jam right now, but it's like this perfect soil. Anyways, I take care of stuff there. I'll digress. I wanted to ask you though, back to, we were talking about feet, and you're a trainer and you're a barefooter. What shoes though, if you were to have someone like, I got some shoes. Are you a, what's that, Earth Runner girl family? What kind of shoes do you guys accept? I know the Move You guys, and I know all those guys pretty well. I talk to them a lot, and I see what they post. I got to hear what you guys like to use.
Great question. And I don't think we get as specific as just wanting a wider toe box. So there's a few things I will say, within BirthFit, within pregnancy, we're thinking about, like if we talk about those who want to run and things like that, and we're talking about running, surface matters. And obviously, like, we know enough to say, don't go from your big squishy name brand shoe to like a zero, minimal shoe, because you're going to wreck yourself. You have to gradually work your way down. So in that, I think it's like there's a few different options, but we're more about wide toe box. We actually do a ton of our training barefoot. We recommend it, or say if you can alter your surface, do a grass, do a track, like something to help build that tolerance. I will say, I can't really recommend. I do like Earth Runners. There's Xero, Xero, Zero shoes and Earth Runners that we really like. The Earth Runners is more of the sandal. Xero, that's more of like a tennis shoe. I will say they're not cute. They're not pretty, but they fit the function bill.
Yeah.
That's my opinion, but
a wide toe box, that's the parameter that you're really saying. And then you're saying gradually go down from maybe a thick sole to a thinner sole.
yeah, like
right?
you're thick running on clouds to nothing at all, but work your way down. And I would say like Vivo barefoot is a great one. But even those they're wider, they can be narrow for some.
Those things get stinky, man. I had a bunch of those, and I blow them out within like 6 months, and they're not cheap, you know. And then they just smell because it's like, oh, and they're like, oh, we'll buy the socks. I'm like, come on, you think I'm gonna keep up with these things? I'm gonna wear these things twice. I'm gonna lose the other one, unless I buy like 100 pair of these feet socks. But then it's like, it takes me like 5 minutes every day to put my freaking shoes on. Like, I want something. It's like no shoes better than some shoes, right? I guess at the end of the day. But
I will say, like, my husband only has a pair of shoes in the car if he needs to go in somewhere, but he doesn't wear shoes ever. When he trains, he will do a ruck, like he will do everything. He won't wear shoes, but he's a size 15. So any of the more decent options, like they don't even have his, like whatever. And so I got a pair of like some sandal ones, not Earth Runners, but I think Zero, but they just didn't work for him. His feet are so big. So, the wider toe box and pregnancy, if you're on your feet all day and you're not really doing much and you want a little bit more cushion, great. Just make sure that your toes aren't squished at the end. But the more like you said, getting fingers interlocked between the toes, rolling the ankle, rolling the bottoms of the feet, like the more mobility we can do down there. Spacers are great. I think, and just training, whether it's just your warm up, if you can do just your warm up or, 10 minutes of your walk or whatever, barefoot, strength work barefoot, just strengthening those stabilizers, the connective tissue, especially in pregnancy, there's a hormone called relaxin, and that's what's responsible for your tissues spreading, for them being more malleable, because if you didn't have that, then like your abdomen would just tear, right?
Right.
Like, oh, I'm so flexible when I'm pregnant. But that also means, when you're doing a shoulder to overhead, you might be a little more wobbly. We're not like putting up 1 rep max shoulder to overhead, but that's a process. So I barefoot we are, the more we're strengthening things when we're more vulnerable, because in pregnancy, you could walk off a curb and what would just be a regular ankle roll could be a heavy sprain or a break because of relaxin. So I think getting really firm and solid on that barefoot foundation is so important. And that's why I like people to train that way if possible. But I wouldn't say like go do a bunch of running repeats and things like that barefoot if you never have. Like you gotta use some logic there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something that needs to be said, because people will hear or they'll read because other people are saying, oh, you need to use these shoes, but they don't mention what you just said. They don't mention, oh, you've been running on clouds, you've been running on, thickers, we'll call them, and then you go straight to nothing. And it's like, that's going to completely hijack your neurology, every single step. I've been getting big on the sled thing for the ATG program, and I've just been loving that and just doing the sled. I was going to buy the torque sled and spend all that money and all that. But, I just went and got like the little Rogue sled, and I put it out here on the grass, and I go barefoot, and man, that warm up in my tibs and like my ankles, and I've always had ankle issues. And I think it's because whatever's going on in my hips or my back or whatever. And I have a bullet in one of my right foot that they told me that if I took it out, it would do way more damage. But anyways, there's something to be said about, getting your foundation, like solid, it's like, that's your foundation literally. And so it's like, get that dialed in.
Yeah.
So, well, cool. Well, thank you so much for that. I hope somebody out there can take that knowledge and utilize it, because I know I am, if someone mentions it to me, and especially for myself, because I do have some clouds, and I do enjoy them. Like when we travel and we're like, like if I'm in another country and we're hiking and stuff like that, like I definitely want to wear something that's super comfy like that. But I don't know, you know what I mean? Like I'm not like you guys, like, like I don't know. And so that's why I kind of come to you and ask you these things, because it's like, I know I need to step my game up, and get my feet right,
Hey, the things that move the most with health are the things that you have consistent exposure to. If you have a pair of shoes that are fun to wear as your walking shoes to go into town on Sunday or whatever, great, wear them. But if you're, you know, using them 12 hours a day, every single day, like that adds up to a lot of hours, and that's different. So, and that's with everything. It's, you know, it's supplementation, it's everything. It's like, hey, once every now and then, probably not going to be, you know, a big mover, but if you're going to do something every single day, you might start to see some changes in your health in either direction.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to think about that. It's like, what things am I exposing myself to the most? Because those are going to be the things that make the biggest difference.
Right. And you just kind of switch gears back to the BirthFit stuff and kind of like what you guys do. Did I hear you wrong? Did you mention you guys own a gym as well?
Myself and my husband do, yeah.
Okay. And then is that kind of how it all started there in the gym, in your brick and mortar, and then went online, or?
No, so when BirthFit, so Lindsay is the CEO of BirthFit, Lindsay Matthews. She's in Wimberley. So I'm down here in like more Houston area. And Lindsay was actually in California. Fun story real quick, and I'll just say this one for her, is she went to chiropractic school. And after thinking she was going to go pre-med, be a doctor, she did a mission trip. I forget where exactly, but basically decided on that mission trip, like, I need to be working with the healing power of like my hands and my touch, not prescribing medication. Went to chiropractic school and worked with like professional athletes and on set in Hollywood. So she's worked with some pretty big name traveling actors, actresses, and she was working with one, and this was early on in the game. And this woman was like, I'm pregnant, major actress. I just signed a contract, need to be ready to film. I have the baby in this month and I need to be ready in this month. Help me get there. And Lindsay was like, okay, let me do some research. And as she researched, she was basically like, there's no information out there.
Wow.
So she's like, let me dig deeper. And everything that she read was like, hey, the quickest healing is an unmedicated vaginal birth. So how do we train to make that a possibility? And so Lindsay kind of just got her gears kicking. So BirthFit started with a blog because as she started to unpeel layers and layers of this non-mainstream information, she was like, the world needs to know this.
Yeah.
Started a blog, and she just got really fascinated with it, worked, you know, with more and more people, became a doula, all of those things. And
Yeah.
blog became BirthFit, which became, you know, just what is now a worldwide kind of movement. But it really just surfaced from that love of, she was an athlete formerly. She was a, you know, strength and conditioning strongman coach. She was a chiropractor. And then this need for women to be like, hey, I need to give birth a certain way. I need to be recovered. I need to feel good. How can I do that? And that's how things started.
So if the woman's in preconception, are you guys pushing them for a more natural birth?
I would,
because that's a slippery slope. I already know, you know, I mean, we had both of our children in water, and I agree 1,000%. And
yeah.
As you talked and I thought, I was like, oh man, this is where a lot of the problems lie. Because when I researched the modern way to have a child, it's like, it's a business. It's what it is. And it's not about women. It's not about the children. It's about the mighty dollar.
Yeah.
The fictionary promissory note. So
I would say we push you to have the information to make an informed decision and to ultimately decide what's best for you. But I'll leave this here. The United States of America has the highest maternal mortality rate of all industrialized countries.
Yep.
And we spend $98 billion a year on birth.
Oh, wow.
99% of births that are recorded are happening in the hospital. So people tend to think, what happens if something goes wrong?
Yeah.
Things go wrong in the system as well.
Right.
And people are just very uninformed on out of hospital care, midwifery, even free birth, things like that. So I think it comes more with, you know, knowledge and understanding of what you've been programmed to believe is the only way, the only safe way. The numbers don't match up, and they're not even close to matching up.
Yeah.
So are we pushing people to have an out-of-hospital birth? We're pushing people to birth in a way that best suits their needs and desires, but we're strongly going to advocate for out-of-hospital birth because we see the favorable outcomes for moms.
Absolutely.
And there's
Absolutely.
no denying that. There's no hiding it. The difference
No.
there most of the time, and I'm not saying that all OBs are created equal. I'm not saying that all hospitals, and also not that all midwives and birth centers are equal. Like you have,
That's true too. That's true too.
but yes, with the number, like I can't strongly say that I'm more confident for someone to have a birth in a hospital than they are out. 100% of the time, I'm going to advocate if they are truly low risk and they are a good candidate for out of hospital birth. That would always be my hope for them, but I would support them in whatever they choose.
Yeah.
So long as they're making decisions with the information they need.
Yeah. And rarely do you see someone who's like generally healthy and, you know, they physically move, that's high risk. You know, it's usually these people that are on medications or that are obese or they have some type of pre-existing condition that make them high risk, which still doesn't mean they can't have a home birth or a water birth or whatever.
I just had a conversation with my midwife, who's I'm very close with. I'm a doula as well, so I get to see her a lot and catch up. But she, you know, in her belief and her background, 30 years of midwifery, several thousand babies that she's taught, she believes that 97% of women are low risk. And you know, I would say the one thing I'll say about out of hospital care is their very first birth meeting, at least at the birth center here, is 90 minutes. And that is more than you spend the entire pregnancy with your OBGYN. So
Right.
they get to know you. I see a question here. I'll answer that. They get to know you in a way where it's like, if you show up and you don't look right, if you know, like they know you to know if something is off, there's usually a reason why, and they will catch it, versus someone who sees you 5 to 10 minutes, looks at your chart, asks a few questions, checks the boxes, and leaves. They miss things because we're human. And the system, it's not because OB-GYNs are bad or they don't care about you. The system is not set up for them to spend the kind of time that you need to be cared for.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And someone said here, or age, anyone over 35.
I saw that.
They're healthy. Yeah, like, no.
Right.
But yeah, that's what we've been led to believe. And people look at you like you have 3 heads when you tell them, oh, I'm 36 years old and I'm going to have a baby outside the hospital.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I don't know.
tough place to navigate. But I think usually when people start to hear that information, I think I'm truly a believer that, you know, we've been giving birth since the very beginning of time. So
Yeah, like what you got to do before the hospital came around, which has only been around the industrial system for like.
Fertilized birth was, you know, in the teens to early 1920s, 30s.
Yeah.
Not that long. And
Right.
I think that there's this innate desire for every woman, if you really are in tune and listening to what's coming up, to want to birth in the most
relaxed, comfortable. The nest, that's mama's nest, yo. Like,
yeah.
That's where mama's like, you know, like yeah, when we did ours, it was like mantras, you know, we had it all. Yeah.
It's just, we're not too far removed from that. It's part of who we are as a woman. And I just see here, she says, my 3rd baby born with a midwife at home. It was the best prenatal care. Like, it's unmatched. And again, it's not all equal, but the care that I've received, that I've seen others receive from a midwife, they are doing the Lord's work. Like, they're incredible human beings, and they put their lives aside to be they care so much about you and that baby is so loved before it's even here. You're not a number. Like, it's unmatched, and I'm a huge advocate for that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Yeah, you know, I didn't think that conversation was going to go there. I didn't think about it, but then as you spoke, I was like, oh man, this is a really important part of this whole deal. Yeah. Is making sure that, you know, because the thing that sold me the most out of the whole like natural birth thing was actually 2 things: the epidural and the fact that the baby gets dosed with the drug, and like the mom's like trying to numb that whole experience and what that can do psychologically. But the way that the hips are positioned in a traditional model, the baby literally has to go down and then defy gravity and come up and out. And it's like, oh, well, no wonder they're pushing for epidural. No wonder they're pushing for C-section, because they make more money and they know that the baby's going to have a way harder time to come out versus like my wife was on her knees in the water and the gravity just went. I mean, we were home in like 3 hours, like from the whole deal.
Yeah.
You know, and when my mom came, she's like in the other room, and then she comes in and she's just kind of looking around. She's kind of like, okay. I get their eyes were like saucers. And I'm like, oh, we're about to go home, Mom. She's like, what? We're going home? She's like, we just got here. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to go home. Everything's good. And I could just see her mind was blown. Like she was processing it all like, what the hell did I do? You know, type situation, you know, and
Cool. And I always catch people off guard when I say this, but I love birth. I'm done having babies. We're done at 2, but if I could do any of it all over again, it would be give birth. Like I love it. And so like I wish women felt that we're able to experience birth in a way to like truly be in love with it and not be afraid.
yeah, that's huge, because that they're all scared because of the system and what's out there. And yeah, and like birthing my children was beautiful. I mean, I was right there. I brought them out. I have both of them had the cord wrapped around their neck, so I was like working with the doula, and we were like moving, and I'm like, oh, crying. You know, my wife's crying. I'm crying. I'm like, this is, and like it's like you just start getting tingly feelings from it. Like your whole body just gets lit, you know, with spirit, and it's just like, this is amazing. Like this is so cool. So.
No, there's no words to describe that. It's like euphoria, out of the body. Like it's just such a cool moment. And I saw a question on like, do I need a doula if I have a midwife? And 100%, I'm going to say yes. I'm a doula, and I still have a doula at my births. You know, and a lot of times, and I would say this might be unpopular, but a midwife in a hospital, I like to call it medwife. Like they still have hospital rules to follow.
Yeah.
And so you want someone who is unbiased, who's there specifically for you, and not also, you know, making decisions based on who's looking over their shoulder. So 100% doula is there to do so many things, mentally, emotionally, physically, all of it. But like with anything, interview them, make sure you connect, make sure you vibe. They're part of your team and a very intimate moment. So you should feel very encouraged by them being there and supported by them being there, and not, you know, worried about them being there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the truth to that. Well, and I wanted to ask you something about the postpartum and see what your thoughts are on that and what you guys kind of think. Because you hear about it, right? You hear about this syndrome, postpartum depression, you know, in women. And I was just curious, do you feel like there's some common threads with what would lead a woman to be in that state? And then maybe some common things that you guys see that could just magically change someone that way. And if someone's dealing with that right now, you know, they could identify and then.
Yeah, the number one thing I think to combat postpartum mood, anxiety, disorders, depression, all of it is support. Like you have to be supported. And, you know, if you're someone who is lucky enough to have your support person at home, be your husband or your spouse or whatever, and they're able to take the time to support you, use that, enroll them, let them know how they can support you. If they have to go back to work, don't be afraid to get help from a sister, a loved one, a mom, whatever it is. Like you need support in the moment. Even if you're the most independent person who doesn't like help, being supported is the number one thing I see to help combat that. But also knowing that it's hard. A new baby is hard. Nursing is hard. I tell everyone to have an IBCLC lactation consultant lined up to come over the week you get home.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nursing is hard, whether it's just support, latch, whether they do have oral ties and you need to figure out next.
Yeah, the tongue tie stuff. Both my kids had it.
Whole other rabbit hole that we could talk for hours on, you know, my thoughts, my theories on that, but mine too. But that being said, like lactation consultants outside of the hospital, someone who can come to you support person, and then that just mental preparation, like understanding and that surrender, that understanding that you are a new person. You're never going to get this time to just lay in the bed with a baby for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and nobody say anything. So take that time. And then lastly, birth depletes you of so many vital nutrients.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes,
And
ma'am.
I'll shout out to you guys, like minerals at this time are so important. And so a lot of depression and anxiety that I see are really your body just yearning for the things that is so depleted of. You give up so much in pregnancy and in birth. You have to refresh. So all of the salt, all of, like, I love pearl powder. I love like all of the magnesium, like more than you think that you need. And to be nourishing the collagen, the bone broth. If you've never focused on quality, now's the time.
Now's the time.
Building tissue. Like, I can't say that enough. So
lot to be said about liquid nutrition too in that, right? Like doing like, because I remember we were doing like I was making her bone broth, colostrum, collagen, pearl powder type smoothies, you know what I mean? Like with some banana and, you know, and some things that she likes in there as well. And I'm like thinking to myself, like, she would just drink that stuff and it's like gone. And then she's like ready to eat food. She's like, okay, where's the food at now? And in my head, I'm like, this is the only way that she's going to be able to get the nutrition she needs is to like literally drink in between the meals, like drink her nutrition in between the meals. And it's like, and you could just see her body. I mean, I remember there was a point she'd come out and she had like this like glow to her. And I'm like, man, look at your skin. She's like, yeah, I've only had like 64 ounces of bone broth today and a steak and veggies. And
like, David, the red meat, even the organs, like, you know, whether you're drinking them or consuming them. I know so many postpartum women who are like, just give me the steak, or like they're just craving it because they're so I call it nourishment. It's like, it's so needed. And you can find that in so many different capacities, but you just have to know that usually when you're feeling mood disorders, there's something dysregulated within your nervous system and your gut. And so much of that is going to be nutrition.
You're hangry. That's what we call it, being hangry. And and the organs. You got to have the organs. Her mom made a traditional Laos organ dish post pregnancy. That's like a traditional dish. And I looked at this bowl and I'm like, sheesh. I mean, it was like every organ. It was like the heart, the kidney, the thyroid, the intestines. And it was like this just thing of big bowl of it. And my wife was just like, wow. I'm like, and she was like, this is amazing. And I'm looking at it like, you're an animal. I love it. Like, this is crazy. You know, she's like, hey, you want to try some? I'm like, I'll try some. But man, she's, you know, definitely got that against over me, you know, like her organ meat consumption is just like, but I will say this, they know how to prepare the organ meats.
That's it. And my husband is great at that too. And his mom is 100% Chinese. So she makes like a juk that has like the kidneys and everything in it. If I made that, no way. But when she makes it, it tastes great. But my husband makes organs regularly, and he's just mastered the way to make them the most palatable, whether in
you have to prepare them properly.
Like I'll be like, does it taste good? I'm like, liver is liver, but you can make it more palatable.
If you cut some liver and some ground beef, you never know it's there. First, you know, like put it in a liver loaf, like so.
Yeah, we get it like a blend from our farmer. It's like a 70-20-10 of and heart, and like that's the way to go. Yeah,
we had this morning we had chicken. It was like free range chicken hearts, and chicken skin sausage. And that's fun, you know, because the kids love it and it's good, you know, and so that works.
Yeah, so postpartum, get it in. That's like it's so important, and it's gonna make you feel so much better. And then baby, you're breastfeeding, like they're gonna reap the benefits of that.
Oh well, yeah, we know that's right.
Yeah,
you know, I had something else I wanted to, something you said. Oh, you said, you know, like to get the mind space right, for women to get the mind space right, to realize that like when they're with that baby for that, you know, that skin to skin contact for that first 2 weeks, to be okay with being in there and knowing that, you know, no one else is going to say anything to you about that, right? So you can kind of wash this idea that you need to do things because no one's expecting you to do things, first and foremost. But secondly, you know, it made me think of something that someone, and I, a really good friend of mine, had a conversation after one of our ceremonies, and he came to me and he was like, you know, with our kids, we only get that time once. We only get when they're 9 once. And 1 to 18, they're gone. And whether they want to come back after that is up to them.
Yeah.
So it's like, you're only going to ever get that one chance to be with your child at that time, ever in life.
Yeah.
You're never getting it back. So
when I say co-regulation, and I mean the skin to skin, the nursing, and you can, if you're watching this, think about this. So I wasn't breastfed. I didn't get, you know, my parents loved me. I had good parents, but I didn't get that co-regulation early in life.
Yeah.
And research to show how that transpires later on in your life. And as an adult, I've always struggled to show affection, to receive affection, to sit with my own emotions. And that's what you learn through co-regulation. Like, you are being lifeline. So being skin to skin, being synced up, you're safe with your parents, you have that safety, you know how to self-regulate, you know that when you need the breast, it's there. When you're stressed out, you're cared for. Like, that co-regulation piece, it's so quick and it's fleeting. You don't even remember. Yeah. By the time they're 2 years old, you're like, I did that. But just that short period of time of that early co-regulation, like, I can see the effects of not having that in my life now, in my relationships, me personally. And so I always think, like, what a gift to be able to give that nervous system, like that safety to my kids, that, like, we had that bond, but they learned how to regulate their own nervous system. They learned that it's okay to share their affection, to trust me, for me to be their safety. Like, that's a piece that when I learned that, I was like, I have to give that to my babies, because I didn't get that, and I feel the effects of it now. And so I think, going with what you said, like, you don't get that time back, and like, there are small things that you can give your kids that last forever, even when they don't, quote unquote, need you anymore. They have you. And
yeah. Yeah, Ashe, that's beautiful. Yeah, they are us. You know, it's like and what's crazy to me, what I'm going through now is, like, I'm actually reconnecting with my biological father, who I haven't really been around for like 25 years, pretty much. I'm 36 now. And holy moly, does it bring up things, and I'm healing, and he's here now. I can hear him talking in the other room. And how much that I am like him, even though he was never around. I mean, he was in the beginning. He was there around until I think I was like in 1st grade, and then my mom and him, you know, did their thing, split up. But it's just, it makes me laugh so hard inside when I see him say things or do things, and I'm like, the hell, I do that, and you ain't even been around, bro.
Yeah.
Right? So what you're saying is so true, like in the beginning. And I know my mom, she I think I was breastfed for maybe 3 or 4 months, but after that, it was straight to the bottle. And the things that you said, I have problems with, is I struggle with that too, a lot. You know, it's like, I want to do things and give love in this way that I've kind of crafted or did, you know, made up through my blocks, through my defense mechanisms, you know. So it's like, with my wife, you know, it's we got together, and with the baby came within like 3 or 4 months of us knowing each other. And so we had a lot. We've been together 10 years, and she was 24. No, she was 22. I was 24. I think she was 21, and I was 24 when we first had Clifford. And sorry, I was trying to get those dates right. And so we had a lot of work to do, you know, and we're still doing that work. And it's like, with him here, and like all this going on, you know, and then with the way that things have been the last 3 or 4 weeks, I'm big into astrology. My wife jumped on. There she is. She said 23, not 21. That's beautiful. So I was 20, she was 23, then I was 26, I believe. So, but yeah, I don't know. It's just like we had a lot that we had to work through. We still work through, and it's a beautiful thing. But like, just like what you said, I feel like my lack of connection with my mother has caused a lot of these things that, like I said, these blocks and stuff that I put up, that I deal with. But circle around with everyone here now with the last, and I'm big into astrology. So the way things have been this last, like, it's been like this huge opportunity for massive transformation, like either sink or swim, you know. And it seems like the Cancer season always does that to me. You know, it's the heart season, it's the summer, passion, vigor, you know, and anyways.
Yeah, it is wild. And I think, you know, it's like I said, I had great parents who did the best that they could. They, you know, they came to the table with their own traumas and history, and as we all do.
Well, they came over on wagons, right? Like
their life not easy. And so, you know, I have forgiveness for them in areas where I think they could have shown up better. I have to have that grace. But like I guess like mantra I have is when my kids do something that make me want to react in a way that is not ideal, I literally like, do better, be better, don't repeat the cycle.
Yeah.
I think it's such a beautiful opportunity to recognize, you know, what didn't serve us, but to say, I get the opportunity now to rewrite this story and to be a different parent, for my kids to hopefully not feel that when they're my age, who knows? But like, just, I get this opportunity to like be aware of it and not ashamed of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I really take that to heart, because you start to see your own parent come out in you. You're like, no,
right,
that didn't serve me. Don't do that to
your right. Yeah. 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 Wow. Yeah, that's so true, man. It's just, I'm in my headspace now, as you can tell. I'm just like thinking about all this. It's such a beautiful thing. But yeah, that's so cool. So cool. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And did you have any questions for me? I mean, do you have any, I know I haven't been really good. I've been kind of naughty on not getting on the Instagram like I'm supposed to. And I know that there's lots of questions people ask me and I don't ever answer them. But do you have any questions for me or anything like that? I'd love to answer them if you did.
I'm almost thinking, I feel like I need to have you on BirthFit, and we can ask more our audience to you. Maybe we'll just create a so
let's do that.
Yeah, let's do that, because I want people in our audience to learn more about Crucial 4. And I don't even call you guys you differentiate yourselves from being a quote unquote supplement company. And I love that. And you have a very unique line. And so I'd love to know more about why. And then there's just a few, I mean, there's a lot of things, some that I'm curious about, but others that I'm like, I want everyone preconception, prenatal, postpartum to know about these things, to have access to them. So I think we need to do a second date just so that I can ask you those questions more focused on Crucial 4.
Absolutely. Let's do that.
Awesome. We'll wrap and then we'll get something set up in the future for us to just learn a little bit more about y'all.
Cool. Absolutely. And thank you again. Thanks to hubby. I said thank you for holding down the children.
He's in the garage getting his workout on, so he's happy.
That's good. Yeah, I need to do that today. I woke up, I trained hard in the morning, then I went up to the farm. I did like 2 hours of jiu-jitsu last night. And I woke up this morning and I'm just like, I was like, I don't want to train this morning. So I'm going to train tonight. But when you say he's in the gym right now, I'm like, yeah, I need to get out there.
Window though, with 3.5 and 16 months, where we get about 90 minutes where it's like, if you're going to get something done and the kids aren't going to be there, go now. So
yeah, touche.
It's usually get them down for a nap and run outside really fast.
Yeah. You know, my wife and I, we didn't do crap for the first like 4 or 5 years. Because it was so hard. Like with my first one, actually, we did. I got pictures of my wife like 2 weeks after birth, and she's looked amazing. It was the second one that threw the kind of the and everything to where we stopped training. And I literally started training almost 2 years ago, like had stopped, you know, and I'm just now starting to get back into it. So kudos to you guys that like you're keeping it up. But I mean, you kind of have to. It's like your business. You own a gym. Like you don't really have a say so in the matter. Like you got to get your sweat on. But
it's part of our livelihood. You know, it's like you can't stop farming, or you know, a lot of people that depend on you are.
Yeah, I'm not just gonna start eating McDonald's and shit, right? Like.
So now we want to be products of our own, you know, word and product put out there. So you know, it's part of our lifestyle now, and you know, I think there's something to be said too for learning what that looks like in your season of life, like what my fitness looks like now.
Yeah.
Not what it looked like before.
Well, and that's why I love what you guys do, because you allow people to go through these things in life that we all eventually go through and say, hey, you know, don't just stop working out like I did, like do this. Like another reason why I wanted to engage with you guys so well, you know, is because I was like, no, like this was my missing piece of the puzzle that I had. So
ebbs and it flows. And I will say, you know, we were highly competitive athletes that spent, you know, 2-a-days for multiple hours session, and then do that when we were young and, you know, 20s and such. But now it's like we're in and we're out at most 45. Sorry.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry. Yeah, like it's 45 minutes and like that's all we have. And people are like, how do you do that? Like you'd be surprised what you can get done in 30, 45 minutes. We have to. So, you know, we aren't.
Oh, yeah.
We're like, how did we used to do this for hours? Now it's just like, man, if we're in there longer than 45 minutes, like something's wrong. Quit wasting time. So, yeah.
That's...
priorities change. But I would say you know, our training age is so long that maintenance is really easy. You know,
that's what it is. I feel like, when you're young and you don't have kids, you don't have to worry and you're building your body up, you can go 2 hours. But when you're older, you don't need that. Like less is more, you get better gains and everything as long as you got that good structure in place. So that's cool. Well, thank you so much again. And I'll catch you guys on the next live.
Awesome. Can't wait.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Bye-bye.